Hello and welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is David Novak. I have often made mention of this anthology, the poem itself edited by Stanley Burnshaw, as really my favorite anthology of verse in translation. The way it generally works is you get the poem printed out, and then the explanatory material goes through the poem line by line, numbering the lines with a literal translation and interspersing details, nuances in the language perhaps, or other, say, historical matter that may help you to catch a reference, that kind of thing. And it's really a great way to read these poems. This is translated by Frederick Nims, I believe, who has a strong Chicago connection. I never took a class with him, and I very much regret that I never did. So I thought I would just read his entire piece here. I've mentioned that Spanish and Portuguese poets are grouped together in one section, and I've always just skipped over the Portuguese poets. I have no background in Portuguese at all. I've never even taken a class. With the exception of Rosalía Castro, I've looked at hers possibly because her selections were translated by Nims. But I think I will read this whole selection, and I will stumble through the Portuguese, even though, as I say, I am illiterate. I don't know how you pronounce it. I believe there's certain typographical indications that you're supposed to become nasal. I don't really know how that works. So, but I'll just to give you a sense of this book. So it's given a title of Negra Sombra, and I suppose it's untitled and it's been given that title, or are these actual titles? Yeah, it must be an editorial thing. Negra Sombra. Quando penso que tu fuce, negra sombra que me asombras, ao pé dos meus cabezales, tornas fazendo-me mofa. Quando maxino que es ida no mesmo sol te me amostras, y eres a estrella que brilla, y eres o vento que zoa. Si cantan, es ti que cantas, si choran, es ti que choras, y es o murmurio do rio, y es a noite, y es a aurora. En todo estás, y ti es todo. Pra min y en min mesma moras, ni me abandonarás nunca, sombra que siempre me asombras. So pardon my butchering that, and then I'll go through the translation and the whole piece by Frederick Nims. Expressed long before in medieval poetry, the Galician mode of morinha, the passionate dark longing for something loved and absent, found its most eloquent voice in Rosalía Castro, Black Gloom, Negro Sombra, as this poem might be called. The verses were originally untitled, has no sharply focused visual imagery. Sound and rhythm constitute its physical being and have most claim on our attention. The black shadow, or gloom, of inescapable melancholy clings to the very words, negra sombra, with their identical length and accent, an effect found also in the first two words of the poem, which were quando penso. Galicians have been heard to say that their word for shadow is not sombra but soma, in which case Rosalía Castro, in choosing the darker and weightier word, is more poet than philologist. 1. When I think that you have gone, 2. Black gloom that overglooms me. 3. At my bedside. 4. You return to deride me. This phrasing, of course, loses the poetry, which lies in the richness and appropriateness of the sound and the rhythm of the palpitating 8-syllable lines with their varying stresses. In the first 2 lines, starkly on the first, third, and 7th syllables, almost undefined in the shuffling 3rd line, a bit offbeat in the mocking 4th, with stresses on the 1st, 4th, and 7th syllable, a mockery sharpened by the repetition in mofa of sounds heard just before. Rhythm and position of Canto Penso and Negra Sombra may relate the two. Thinking also is a kind of gloom, and asombras, which here means fill with gloom, is the more menacing because of its commoner meaning of frighten or amaze. 5. When I imagine that you have gone. 6. In the very sunlight you appear to me. 7. And you are the star that shines. 8. And you are the wind that sighs. The think of line 1 has become the more forced imagine, and the apparition of the sombra in full sunlight is more disconcerting than in the dark bedroom. Soul bears the strongest accent in its line, pregnant with incredulity and dismay. Noticeable, too, is the little echo of sound, rela, rila, in estrella and brilla. 7. As he's referring to that, I probably shouldn't repeat that. As the presence of the shadow spreads from the sun to another kind of light and then into the moving atmosphere itself, the air of life, to invade, in the following stanza, very different spheres of nature and human activity. 9. If they sing, it is you that sing. 10. If they weep, it is you that weep. 11. And you are the murmuring of the river. 12. And you are the night, and you are the dawn. The two e's, ands, begin lines in this stanza exactly as in the preceding one, followed by a final weary and in the middle of line 12. The fourth stanza makes a universal presence of a sorrow so widely detected. 13. You are in everything, and you are everything. Estás and es, eres are forms of estar and ser, the two verbs rendered in English by to be. The first indicates location or accidental quality, the second existence. So here the meaning deepens. 14. For me and my very self you live. The sorrow is taken so to heart by the poet that it seems as if all sorrow had made her its victim and were rooted deep within her. The meaning is dramatized not only by the repetition of sound, but by the nature of the sound repeated, humming nasals deep within the resonant chambers of the head. Plato, in the Cratylus, called an internal sound, appropriate in such words as inside, he prints the Greek, deep in our physical being, so that the line can be read between closed teeth. It is not fanciful that the deep M's and N's are expressive in a statement about the sombra as felt within, whereas the more external clipped T's of the line above, with its two elided syllables, are adequate for a statement. The same sounds recur relentlessly in the last two lines. 15, and you will abandon me never. 16, gloom that always overglooms me. In the last of these, which looks into an endless future, sound and rhythm are particularly significant, with the three violent stresses on words so similar, so that the double gloom, gloom as fact and agent, are identified with foreverness. The very form of the line involves us in that clinging presence. The last word, for the movement of invasive gloom, is stronger, since it is the final assonance in the series of o-a, e.g. mofa, in the even-numbered lines throughout. The poem is without verbal extravagances, not one unusual word, not one inversion. In an age when so many poets were declaiming, Rosalía Castro, like Sappho, dared to use natural speech. So just coming at this blindly and having to hear it as opposed to having the page in front of you where you can linger over it and refer back to the poem and see everything in context, it's got to be hard for you as a listener to really get the feel of this. But I wanted to share it because it is a book that I highly recommend if you want to have an introduction to poetry in the biggest European languages, the big poems particularly of, well, I don't know that they restrict themselves to the year of l'entre-deux-guerres or whatever. I think it may go back some ways. It looks like this, like 1869 or something, is probably about the earliest that they go back. You have Baudelaire, you have Gérard de Nerval. I mean, it's helpful if you have a little background, undergraduate, a 101 course in the language, but they give you a glossary for pronunciation of these things if you want to do all that work yourself. As I said, I've had some classes in some of these languages, never in Portuguese nor German, so I've tended to just avoid those parts of this book, but highly recommended, edited by Stanley Burnshaw, and one of a kind as far as I know, unfortunately. Thank you for stopping by my channel.